Hello, welcome to the live stream. It is Saturday, April 5th, 2025. This is live stream number 11. Let me get my notes. Okay, so let's go through a little housekeeping updates. I published a video, a pre-recorded video, not a live stream, a few days ago, and that's the interview slash debate with Elijah Moore. Pleased to see that get some views and some likes. I got some subscribers recently. Not sure if it was due to that or something else, but that was good to see. I had a nice comment from someone on X about who liked my conversation with Elijah, and she also posted a comment on the YouTube channel, and she actually motivated me to rewatch the video. Sometimes when other people engage with my content and they comment on it, it makes me curious to go back and watch it again. And I did that with the that last video with Elijah, and that gave me a chance to add a little more detail about it in the description, some timestamps. So at first, when I published it, I didn't have any description of the video. It was just the title saying it was a interview slash debate about ethics, politics, and objectivism. But having rewatched it, I broke it down a little more um, into more detail. So now there's a little table of contents, so to speak, in the description. And I've done that for many of my videos, but I don't always have time to do that because it's like when I'm first re-listening to a conversation that I had, I often just want to focus entirely on the conversation and not like be starting it and stopping it and decide, is this a good place to put a section break and timestamp it for the description, or should I wait a little longer? That's is kind of a split focus in my mind. But if I have a chance to listen to it a second time, then I can start thinking about those kinds of issues. And in this case, I had a chance to listen to it twice, and that gave me a chance to think about what are some good ways to break it up. So if you look in the description underneath the video, you'll see I put in several timestamps. So now if people want to go to a specific part of it, it'll be easier to find it. It just makes it easier to navigate the entire video, which is about 90 minutes long. So if it's just, a few minute video, it's kind of overkill to try to give it a table of contents. But with a video that long, it can be helpful sometimes to jump around to different parts of it. And it helps me also remember what was discussed. I might want to go back and listen to something. So it's useful to have those descriptions, but it takes time sometimes to create, and I don't always have the time to do it. So not all of my videos are broken down like that in the description, but many of them are, maybe most of them. Um, but I might also, well, I have been doing that to some extent with my live stream videos. I will often go back and listen to them, maybe partly because it's a new thing. I've only been doing this for about a month. Uh, and maybe, after I've been doing it for much longer, I won't go back and re-listen to them as often. But so far, I think I've re-listened to all of my live streams at least one time. And that's given me a chance to go in the description, break it down, and put in some timestamps. It's also, I don't have to re-listen to the whole thing to put it in timestamps. Like, for instance, if someone joins the call at a certain point, like an hour into the live stream, I don't have to watch the entire video. I can just um, put my mouse cursor over the progress bar on YouTube, and you know how it gives you like a little preview of what the screen looks like at a certain point in the video. Well, I can just look at that and see like visually when somebody else joins the call, assuming they have their camera turned on, because the picture changes. So it's very easy to find the start point of certain segments of the live stream, like if somebody is joining a call. So that helps make it easier to create timestamps for a description. Um, so I see we got three people here. Nice to see you all. Oh, I got some chats already. We got CPG 1859 asks, what is your opinion on the war in Gaza? What is it, Dan? Oh, are you just uh, reiterating your question there? I don't have timestamps on those. I'm curious how long ago you made this comment. I don't know how long it's been sitting there. Let me, oh, I can see it over on my, not on my phone, but when I go to my laptop, I can see the timestamp. So it's been there for a few minutes. Uh, maybe I will, I'm not sure I want to, oh, you say yes, sorry. Um, I guess so you're just, I guess you mean you were just repeating the question. So at the beginning of my stream, sometimes I just like to do a little update on what's been going on, updates to the channel, or how I do live streams, or what I've been reading about. So that's what I've been doing these first few minutes. And maybe I will get to your question in a minute. Let me just take a look at my list of things. I made some notes on things I might talk about and see if there's anything else I want to talk about before I address your question. Okay. Oh, so one other thing is I don't have an editor right now for my channel. I don't know if I ever will. Maybe I will, but I'm doing it all myself. So it takes time to do things like create descriptions, find timestamps, create thumbnails. Um, so if I had an editor, it would who did something like all of those things I just mentioned, then that would make it easier. But uh, I might. It's not necessarily going to make things easier. Like I actually did have. I don't know if I would call it an editor many years ago, but when I first started my channel over 5 years ago, there was someone who volunteered to help out with it, and he was helping with editing some videos. But I I was giving him directions on can you tweak it this way or that way, and we went back and forth many times, and it turned out that it was just more time to give him all the instructions on exactly how I wanted it versus just doing it myself. So it actually did not save time. Uh, Now, maybe if we had continued working together for long enough, we could have gotten to a point where it would have been a net time saver for me. But we never got to that point. He eventually he went off, and I guess he had some other things he wanted to spend his time on. Um, and it's well, actually that there have been other. I can remember one other case where someone was offering to help out with thumbnails, although I think that was for hire. So I did kind of a little test run with one other person on creating thumbnails, and it was a similar kind of thing where I kept giving him instructions. Can you change it this way, that way? And it ended up just being more time than if I just ended up doing it myself. So I've just been doing it myself, essentially for the entire time of this channel. Now, maybe at a certain point, and I've improved my skills. Like I've had to learn some skills on like the various software on how to do it myself. And I kind of like being able to do it myself. It gives me an independence and command over the channel that I wouldn't have if I were totally reliant on somebody else. So there are definitely advantages to doing it myself. And it could be like I don't have to work around somebody else's schedule. I can do something right away if I want to have something done. So there are definitely advantages to doing it myself, but there are also advantages to having somebody else do it. And maybe at some point it'll make sense to do that, but right now I'm just doing it myself. And if anyone ever wants to volunteer to do any of this stuff, you're welcome to contact me. Um, Descriptions are something like you could just put in a comments, and some people do that. Um, on sometimes I go to a channel and I'll look in the comments below the video and I'll see that just someone who has watched the video has created their own table of contents and with timestamps. And if anyone is interested in doing that, you're welcome to do that. Um, okay, so I think that's enough for YouTube channel kind of updates. As for Zoom, one thing I'm curious to try, I do my calls when I have someone call in. I do it through Zoom, and there's actually a phone number and multiple phone numbers that you can call. And I don't, I want to try that. I haven't had anyone call in by phone. It's always been just through using Zoom software. But in case someone doesn't have access to that, there is another way to do a call, which is just to dial a certain phone number. So I'm curious to try that at some point. I don't know if I'll do it today. Maybe I could test it myself. But if any of you out there are interested in testing that, feel free to let me know in the chat. Speaking of which, let me take a quick look at it and see if anything new has come in. Oh, I see. Another message from CPG 1859. Appreciate you, he or she says. Um, you can tell me your pronouns if you want, because I can't tell from the screen name. Um, okay. So I'm curious, CPG. I don't recognize your name. I don't know if you are new to my channel, but I'm always curious how people found out about my channel and when you found out. So if you want to let me know in the chat, I would definitely be interested to hear that. Some people, like there was one person I think last time, maybe the last two times, who said they heard about me through the Majority Report with Sam Cedar. That's another a very large platform, over I think 1.75 million subscribers now, which I've been on many times, and some people heard about me through that. So I don't know if you come from there or somewhere else, but anyways, I'd be curious to know. Okay, just a little update on what I've been reading. I've continued reading about medieval England. I finished the article on that I was reading about Henry the First, the King of England from 1100 to 1135, and also his wives. I usually like to read about the queens as well. So he was married twice. First to Matilda of Scotland. There were many Matildas around this time. So that was his first wife. And then his second wife, Adeliza of Louvain. I think that's somewhere in Belgium, Louvain. And I read those two articles on his wives. And then I started the article on the next king. So after Henry the First died in 1135, his nephew, Stephen, became king. He was from a different, he wasn't just like a son, so it was a different house. You had the House of Normandy, and then once Stephen became king, it was the House of, I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know French. Blois, Blois, something like that. So it was a new house, and then after him, it went back, well, not exactly to the House of Normandy, or maybe like a subdivision of the House of Normandy. The House of Plantagenet was the next one. Okay, I won't go into more details, but anyways, that's what I've been reading about history recently. And then I also started reading about tariffs, given that that's been a big news item recently. Okay, I see CPG has said he's new to he or she. Maybe I'll just say he to make it simple, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, okay. Found out via Majority Report. All right, so I think you might be the third live stream in a row where someone has said they found out about me through the majority report. All right, so uh, maybe I'll take your question now about Gaza. You can also call in if you want. We could do a call, but maybe I'll just say some things first. Um, I see I have some other points on my list of topics I could discuss, but they're not really urgent. So I think CPG has been, since you've been typing in the chat, I'm going to take a little break to engage with your question. So you asked about the war in Gaza. Well, for one thing, I support Israel. I have one video on my channel about Israel. I might have comments in other places, but there's one video where it's actually the main topic. It's a short video. I think it's just a minute or two. In I put that out right after the October 7th attacks. So this would have been that was 2023. So if you go back to my October 2023 videos, you'll see my short video on Israel. But I do support Israel. I think Israel is, and the reason is because it's at least relatively speaking, a pro-freedom country. It respects rights. There's no country, including the United States, that perfectly respects rights. And exactly what a right is, that's a big topic. But given my understanding of rights, which comes from Ayn Rand, Israel does a relatively good job of upholding rights. Um, Things like the right to freedom of speech, just as an example, right to property. Again, not perfect, but compared to like a totalitarian regime, and certainly compared to the other nations around Israel, I think within the Middle East, Israel is the most rights respecting country. And it doesn't matter what your race is, like you can be Arab and be a member of the Israeli parliament. But if you're Jewish, and then you don't, in these neighboring countries, you don't have those sorts of rights, at least not nearly to the same extent. Your life is in danger. So because I think Israel is, at least in general and relatively speaking, a rights respecting country, I support it against the aggression against it of its neighbors. Now, I know there's a long history, and maybe it can be somewhat complicated, exactly what happened, who started the war, when. And I read some about the history. I'm certainly not an expert in it, but based on what I've read, and what I've learned from other sources, including people at the Ayn Rand Institute, they've done a lot of commentary. So I'm a big fan of Ayn Rand's, and I follow the work of the Ayn Rand Institute. They put out many videos, and over the years, about the Israeli-Arab conflict or the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The primary expert there on this topic is Elon Giorno. He wrote a book called What Justice Demands: America and the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict. I think that's the subtitle. Um, and I read his book. So that's some of my source on um, the background of the conflict and how to evaluate it. I learned from that book. Euron Brook also, I've learned a fair amount from. He's the chairman of the board at the Ayn Rand Institute, and he's also talked a lot about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in lectures and on his show. He also has a YouTube show. So I would recommend both of those sources to people who want to learn more about it. Um, there's much more I could say, but those are some of my initial thoughts on the war in Gaza. I see there's another comment from CPG in the chat. Let me take a look at that. Um, Actually, I want to read it on the screen so I can Okay, so it says there are over 60 laws that apply unequally alone in Israel proper between Israeli Arabs and Jews. This is not to mention their occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. And then I see there's a new comment that just came in, two new comments. Maybe he's typing as I speak, maybe. Um, yeah, this is in addition to not respecting the deeds that people from the diaspora, Nakba, possess. There are Arab families from Israel proper that have cultivated plots of land for tens of generations, yet their property rights are not respected. Okay, so let me first say that I am not an expert on this topic, so you might know a lot more about some of the historical details than I do. Um, as I mentioned, there's this guy, Alon Giorno. He's a fellow at the Ayn Rand Institute. He's an expert on this topic. Certainly relative to me, he's an expert. So I know relatively little about some of these details. So I don't know. I might not be the best person to engage in a debate on the sort of level that you would be interested. Like I can have a general kind of discussion, like at a more abstract level, but when you start getting into the nitty gritty details of it, then there's a more limited amount on what I can say, not being an expert. Um, but there might be a few comments I can make based on my very my relatively limited knowledge of this subject. So let me look back again at your comments to see if they um, trigger any thoughts. So you say there are over. Oh, actually, one thought is I think uh, Ilan Jorno's book it does make it does say that there have been some injustices on both sides. So it's not to say that Israel has never done anything wrong and they've perfectly respected the rights of Palestinians or Arabs. They never made a mistake. Um, I think he says no. There have been problems on both sides, um, but if you look at the forest as opposed to just a few trees, the dominant pattern is that Israel is in the right. So despite some mistakes or worse than mistakes, um, looking at it from a bird's eye sort of view, in the main, Israel is a rights respecting country. So as I mentioned before, it's not perfect. Even the United States is not perfect. Lots of problems in the United States. Like I would say, taxes is one example of a violation of rights. You're forced to give some of your money to the governments. Um, I think that's a violation of rights. Yet pretty much every country does that. Regulations like minimum wage laws that regulates the wages people earn. I think that's a violation of rights. I think people should be free to contract for whatever wage they voluntarily agree to. So there's certainly failures to respect rights all over the world, but if you're looking at it from a very general sort of like at a more large scale level, like if you're comparatively in terms of like degrees, um, I think Israel respects rights more than its neighboring countries. Not perfect, but definitely better, I would say. I'm curious what you would say to that. Like, whatever criticisms you have of Israel, would you say that it's at least better than the surrounding countries? That's something I would be interested to know. Um, now, I think some of the reasons maybe there are um, so rockets have been fired into Israel from nearby areas. I think Gaza and also Lebanon. So from the north and the south, because you have Hezbollah up in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. Um, and I think it's because of the attacks coming from these neighboring areas that Israel has put they've made travel between Israel and these neighboring areas more difficult. Um, because otherwise, I guess if people were just allowed to freely come in, you can have massacres like occurred on October 7th. So there's justification given the hostility, like these people want to exterminate Jews. Many of the people surrounding um, Israel want to destroy them. So you can't just have open immigration in a situation like that. It makes sense to have controlled immigration, if any. Like I think in wartime, it's reasonable to close the borders or at least make them more closed than they used to. If you have friendly, peaceful neighbors like U.S. and Canada, I don't see a reason to close that border. But Israel is in an unusual sort of position. But if there are peaceful Arabs living on the Israeli side of the border, then I think their rights should be respected. And if Israel just takes over their lands, I think that's wrong. Um, Now, I think some of I've heard there's like so within Israel there are different. You've got like radical religious Jews um, I, who are much more anti-Arab or anti-Palestinian than I guess most of Israeli citizens. And I think maybe it's some of these radical religious fundamentalist Orthodox Jews who are um, responsible or partly responsible for um, violating rights against the uh, Arabs in Israel. I'm not sure, but I have heard some about um, radical religious Jews, um, I guess, taking some kind of action that's not appropriate. And I can't give you details, so I would have to learn more about it to say more. But uh, um, I don't think it's all Israel. I think probably many Israelis would be fine respecting and would like to respect the rights of Arabs living in Israel. And as I mentioned before, you can even be in the parliaments, the Knesset. I think that's the name of it in Israel. You don't have to be Israeli. So I wouldn't say that all um, Israelis are anti-Arab, even if some are. Just like, I mean, you always like in America, there are some racists in America, but that doesn't mean all Americans are racist. Okay, I think some more comments have come in from CPG. So let me take. Oh, you've been typing a lot. Um, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with all of this. Um, but let me just. Okay, so I'm basically having a back and forth with CPG, um, who's typing in the chat. As I mentioned, if anyone wants to do a call, you're welcome to just click that Zoom link. I didn't pin the link. Maybe I don't think I pinned the Zoom link. Let me do that so it doesn't get lost. Um, okay, I just pinned the link to the Zoom call. So if anyone wants to call in, just click that link that I pinned in the chat. But I don't see anyone else engaging right now except for CPG in the chat. So I guess I'm just gonna engage with him there. So let me read through some more of these that I see have come in. Uh, Okay. Say, so much more has come in than I was just like in the middle of answering the first question from, it looks like 1:47 p.m. is the timestamp on that. And that just triggered a bunch of thoughts. So I was just kind of spilling out all the thoughts I had based on what was triggered from that first comment. I don't think I even finished the first comment or um, but let me let me look back at it and see what else I want to say. So you say there are over 60 laws that apply unequally alone in Israel proper between Israeli Arabs and Jews. Um, this is not to mention their occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. Um, this is in addition to not respecting the deeds that people from the diaspora possess. There are Arab families from Israel proper that have cultivated plots of lands for tens of generations, yet their property rights are not respected. No worries. Thanks for engaging in the topic. All right, I'm going to pause on that one because I just had another thought. So I'm just going to highlight where I left off so I know where to pick up. Um, so the thought I had was I've heard that Israel or Israelis, they just bought lands from, I don't know who it was exactly, but there were contracts. So some of the land that Israelis currently possess, it wasn't taken by force, by coercion. It was just purchased at a certain point, and that gave them title to it. Maybe it wasn't always that case, but I know at least I've heard at least for some of the cases or some of the land that Israel possesses, it was purchased from the previous owners. Now I don't know if that was like at the time of the Ottoman Empire or before that or after that. I'm not sure. Also, I think part of at a certain point, I think maybe Tel Aviv, if I'm remembering correctly, that was pretty much just desert area before the Israelis um, started building on it and developing it. I don't know exactly when this happened, but um, I think that, this is a case where they didn't just steal land from someone who was living there and developing on it. Rather, they developed it themselves. Also, there's an issue of does something like the Ottoman Empire even have rights? Like, is it a legitimate state in the first place whose rights should be respected? Like, if they're oppressing their own people with Sharia law or something like that, and or women can get beaten, um, do you really have to respect a regime like that, or can you just overthrow it? I think if a regime is like a totalitarian regime, I think if it's like that, then it doesn't have any rights, any sovereignty, any legitimate sovereignty, and you can just overthrow it. Now, if there are individuals living in the jurisdiction of that regime, and those individuals are rights respecting, and they're just peaceful people, not coercing anyone, I think those individuals' rights should be respected, and it would be wrong to take their property. But if it's property of, a dictator, a tyrant, then I don't think it's bad, and I think it could actually be good to use force to take away that person's property. Then it would be retaliatory force, not initiating force. So a principle of Ayn Rand's philosophy, objectivism, is that it's wrong to initiate force, to start the use of force against someone else. But if you're using force in retaliation against someone else who has started the use of force, then it's justified. Um, so, like, if it would be initiation of force if I just walk up to someone randomly and just punch them in the face. Um, Now, if that person punches me back in order to uh, stop my attack, then that would be a justified use of force. That would be retaliatory force. And likewise, on a larger political or governmental scale, if some regime is using force to oppress its own citizens or aggress against neighboring countries, then it would be justified to use retaliatory force to stop that aggression. Okay, let me see what else is here. Um, you say, however, there is a difference between taxers and holding a civilian population under blockade for 16 years. Okay, so uh, I guess the you're referring to there's a naval blockade in the Mediterranean. Is that the blockade? Maybe that's the blockade you're talking about. I think there's a blockade there, blocking things from coming into Gaza by sea. Um, I don't know much about that, but I think I guess if there are places like Iran who are sponsoring terrorism, if they're funding Hamas, like if they're shipping in weapons by sea, it would be justified to put on a blockade if you know those things are coming in. So if they're going to use these imported rockets to fire at Israel, then it would be retaliatory force um, to blockade those imports. Okay. Then you say no control of borders, no access to the Gaza Marine, no rights to airspace, no control over potable water sources. I guess airspace is another, like if they're firing rockets at you, why would you give them the ability to fly planes, which they could wreak much more havoc and devastation. They could not only fire rockets from land, but they could fly planes over you and drop bombs. So again, in the name of self-defense, um, I don't see why you wouldn't shut off airspace as well. But interestingly, Israel does supply, I think, water or electricity, or maybe both, internet access to Gaza. Um, and that might seem kind of strange. Like if you're at war with this place, why not cut off those things? Why be helping them at all? Why not like starve them out? And I think Israel has been far too weak in this defending itself. And I think that might be partly due to pressure from countries like the US, unfortunately. Like, have a ceasefire. Why would you go have a ceasefire? Um, I think on a proper philosophy, a philosophy of self-interest or egoism, which is what Ayn Rand supports, you would be much stronger in defense of yourself. You would destroy the enemy so that it can never come back. Um, but Israel has been fighting for decades with its neighbors. I don't think it needs to. Um, I think it could have um, crushed the enemy long ago if it had the will to do so. But I think maybe because of the morality uh, of altruism, it's thinks that it's good to sacrifice for the sake of others. Um, so if you hold a Christian morality that says love your enemy and turn the other cheek, um, well, that's certainly not going to help your ability to defend yourself. You're morally disarmed. If you accept the morality of self-sacrifice. Now, I just quoted Jesus, turning the other cheek and loving your enemy. But I think the Jewish religion also has um, the element of self-sacrifice, maybe not to the same extent or in the same way quite as Christianity, but there are stories in the Old Testament of like the story of Abraham who sacrificed his son, just blindly following God's orders. Was it Isaac? He agreed to kill his son at the last minute. God says it was just a test of whether he was obedient. But if you hold that it's good to sacrifice, then sacrifice your own values. Then why would you stand up for yourself? That's kind of the opposite of what you should be doing if you accept the morality of sacrifice. Um, so I think there are moral and religious reasons that countries like Israel and I would include the United States also, has not stood up for itself. U.S. was attacked on 9/11. It had hostages taken by Iran in 1979. Yet, here we are decades later, and there are still countries like Iran, they're still wreaking havoc around the world, funding terrorists. Um, so I think Western countries, at least partly because of the influence of Christianity and religion, have done a very poor job defending their own people and their own values. And this is why, one reason why I think the West needs a new morality, a morality of self-interest, which is what Ayn Rand offers, and which I talk a lot about on my channel. Okay, let me take a come back to the chat, see if there's still a lot of comments here from CPG. So far, just CPG. So let me read through some more of his. Okay, so you say, I think I'm up to the one that says, um, why is unemployment over 40% in Gaza? Um, Also, like, I don't even know if, a lot of the statistics I would not trust. I'm not referring to this one in particular, but just in general, um, I don't think Gaza or Hamas is a trustworthy source of information. I mean, if you're a murderer, if you're a murderous regime, I don't think you're really the type of person with the type of character um, who is trustworthy, right? If you're going to kill me, you would certainly lie to me. So when it comes to things like the death toll, I would not trust I, anything that comes out of uh, Hamas. I would want to get some kind of independent verification of the numbers from a source that I do trust. Um, so this claim about there's why is unemployment over 40% in Gaza? I don't know even know if that's true. I don't know what the source of that claim is. Um, and whether it's true or not, is I don't know what to make of that just off the top of my head. I mean, if they're having a war, their whole country is destroyed, or a big part of it is destroyed. I guess it's not really surprising if unemployment is over 40%. Well, you might think they should work overtime. You should have like the full population should be trying to defend itself, since they are in such dire straits. Um, but I don't know what to make of that number. Um, there could also be like differences among Palestinians, and like some of them I think are supportive of Hamas and um, are happy that Israelis were slaughtered. And maybe the majority, I think I've heard that um, a majority of Palestinians uh, support uh, hostility to Israel. Um, so maybe a lot of them, maybe the majority, are not innocent. Um, but and it's tragic, So if there are Palestinians who hate Hamas and would like to live in a rights respecting place, or at least a relatively rights respecting place like Israel, it's tragic that those people are killed uh, in this war. But I think the responsibility for those deaths lies on the aggressor. It's not, if Israel is attacking Gaza in order to defend itself and that results in innocent deaths, well, um, it's as I said, it's tragic, but the responsibility lies with the aggressor who brought this attack on themselves by initiating the aggression. And then, we can go back in history and have a debate on who really did initiate the aggression. And Um, Based on what I've learned, it seems to me that, um, at least for the most part, Israel is not the aggressor. Rather, its neighbors are. Uh, so well, let's see what else we got here. Israel occupied Lebanon illegally for 18 years. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. Like people also say Israel, like the entire country is an occupation, right? Some people hold that view and has no, it's been there illegally since its inception or something, right? So I don't know if you're coming from that perspective. I guess if you're a Majority Report listener, you said you heard about me from the Majority Report. From what I don't follow them too closely, but I think they're quite anti-Israel. Um, so maybe you're getting some of this from them. I don't know, but I certainly wouldn't take what I hear from the Majority Report at face value. Um, I would want to get independent verification. Um, okay, you say it's time to stop the double standards. Uh, I don't know what double standards you're referring to, but um, okay. Uh, Let me just check the chat. Oh, we got 4 people here. I think that's been the highest I've seen. I haven't had my eye on it the whole time, but glad to see we got a few people here. So for anyone who's joined late, I've just been give a little update on the channel. I guess most of the last, I don't know, 15 minutes, I've just been engaging with CPG here in the chat because he's the only one who's typing anything. But if anyone else wants to come in, either text chat or Zoom call, feel free to do so. There's a link at the top of the chat. I pinned it. If anyone wants to join on Zoom, I don't want to lose my voice, so maybe some water will help here. All right, let me read through some more of CPG. Okay, so you say in 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon during the Civil War and sieged the capital city. That's Beirut, right? Then the Phalangists, with the aid of Israel, committed the Sabra and Shatila massacre. Okay. I read about Lebanon, uh, maybe it was a year or two ago, the 1982 Lebanon War, and I forget there. I mean, I don't remember all the details of it. I usually read Wikipedia just to like if I really want to be an expert on something, I'm going to read other things too. But right now, I'm at the stage where I'm just trying to get the general idea of what's going on, and I think Wikipedia is a good place to start at least. So I read the article there about a year or two ago, I think, about Lebanon and their clash with Israel. And I seem to recall that there was it might have been an attack on Israel or on some person. Someone in a truck was there a truck bombing or someone was shot in a vehicle? I could look this up right now. I don't know if I want to do that. It might be too much of a detour to try to sort this out. But I'm not sure that I wouldn't take for granted that Israel was the aggressor. Was there something that um, anti-Israelis did that instigated whatever attack you're referring to, this massacre? And then there was a back and forth cycle of violence, as it's often called. But who started the cycle? I think that's an important question. Like, the you when two children have a disagreement, one will often and there's adult around, like a parent or a teacher. one of the kid will say, but he started it, right? And I think that's uh, a great thing to say. I think it's very important and relevant, um, who started it. Now, what's an appropriate way to react? Like maybe instead of um, punching someone back, if you as a kid are punched, maybe a better way to handle it is to go to your parents and have the parents deal with it rather than just punching back at the kid who punched you first. But um, regardless of what is the proper response, it is relevant who started it, at least on a proper philosophy, an egoist philosophy. Now, if you hold an altruist philosophy and you think it's good to sacrifice yourself for the sake of others, then, well, someone else started it. Well, maybe that's a good thing. You should, maybe you should welcome being aggressed against if your goal is self-sacrifice. But if your goal is self-interest, if your goal is pursuing your own happiness and well-being, then it does matter who started it. Um, I see we got someone else in chat. I don't know how to pronounce that. Kuoxsr. But I recognize your screen name from X or Twitter. Oh, we got another person joining the chat. Darwin is the screen name. Yeah, so I recognize Kuxer. I don't know how I should pronounce that from X. So thanks for joining. Nice to see you here. Darwin, I'm not sure where you might have. I don't recognize your name. I mean, I know Charles Darwin, but assuming you're not Charles Darwin, the Charles Darwin, um, you're a new person. Nice to see new people here. Um, FriendHarper. All right, we're on a roll here. We got a bunch of new people joining the chat. Uh, FriendHarper says hello. Hello to you. And we've got Darwin says, look up the complicity of Sharon. I guess you mean Ariel Sharon, who was the president or prime minister, or maybe both at different times of Israel. Um, I don't remember exactly. Um, uh, but let me just read Kuxer's message. Since I've been giving a lot of time to CPG, so I want to skip over to give a little time to these other chatters. So Kuxer says Wikipedia, and then he quotes it. Quote, the killings are widely believed to have taken place under the command of Lebanese politician Eli Hobika, unquote. So I don't know if you're referring to killings of Israelis that then instigated these massacres that CPG was referring to. I haven't read all the intervening chat, so maybe you're referring to something else. I'm not sure. But let me go back to where I left off with CPG. But it's good to see these other people joining. All right, so and feel free to keep it coming in, and I'll jump around some in the chat if I see other people making comments. I'll try to spread the time somewhat evenly, um, to spread it around to different people. Not that I'm an egalitarian who thinks everyone necessarily should get equal time. Sometimes I think it makes sense to give more time to certain comments, just because they're more um, relevant to some topic, or they're very interesting for some reason. So they don't all necessarily have to have equal time. But in any case, I'm happy right now to spread the time around some more. All right, I see some more. We got some more comments from. We got one from Kuxer. Um, I'm curious what that name means, by the way. I like when I see a screen name. I often wonder, like, what does it mean? Like, how did you come to hold that, and how to pronounce it? I would really just like to know how should I pronounce this. Um, and so another thing I like to know is like for people who are new that I don't recognize, like when did you find out about my channel and how? How did you come across it? I like to know where people are coming from. So CPG said he heard about me on the Majority Report, and I'm curious to know how these other people heard about me and when. So I'd be interested to hear about that in the chat. Okay, Kookser is saying it's a letter substitution cipher. It has no valid pronunciation. Okay, some kind of code. So I guess I'll just keep on saying Kookser uh, for now, unless you want to stipulate a different pronunciation. Okay, so he quotes Wikipedia. Also, I might just use male pronouns unless someone tells me I should do otherwise, just to keep it simple. Because I think most viewers are probably male, and I can see some in my YouTube analytics as to the breakdown on gender, and most are male according to that. And I think in general, YouTube is mostly male viewers. So I think maybe I'll just assume male pronouns, and then you can correct me if you need to. All right. So Kookser says, according to Wikipedia, oh yeah, I read that one. Killings are widely believed to have taken place under the command of Lebanese politician Eli Hobika. Um, Darwin says, look up the complicity of Sharon. Maybe I'll do that later. Um, don't want to try to dig into that right now. Okay, so here's the next comment from Kookser. Another quote from Wikipedia he gives is in June 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon with the intention of rooting out the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization. Yeah, that was a terrorist organization, right? Wasn't it headed by Yasser Arafat? So, um, if that's the case, then wouldn't there be some justification for invading? Wouldn't that be kind of retaliating? Because the PLO, weren't they doing terrorist attacks like in the 60s and 70s, like hijacking planes? And um, so if you know that they're hanging out in Lebanon, I think it's reasonable to try to root them out, protect your own people. Okay. And then FriendHarper says, I don't know what the theme of the episode is about. Uh, well, right now it's Israel and its war with its neighbors. I didn't really have one coming into this live stream, and I often don't. Um, Usually, what I've been doing so far, this is my 11th live stream, and it might be, the format of it might change over time. But so far, I think I've usually started my live streams by just like giving an update on what I've been reading. Um, so today it talks about some of the history I've been reading um, about England, and also I talked a tiny bit about tariffs, which I was reading about. And then it's kind of driven by the topics are driven by engagement. So my primary purpose here is to engage with people. So you bring the topics. Um, so it just so happens that CPG was the first to engage, and he asked me about the war in Gaza. So I talked about that. So that became the theme, and he was the only one on the chat for a long time. So I just continued to engage with his comments, and he was interested in talking about Israel. So that's what I talked about. But now some other people are engaging, and I guess it's still mostly on Israel, but now I'm just giving some more time to them. Usually, what I will do after the live stream, after I know what's been talked about, is I will retitle the the live stream. So I have a default title, which is just chat/debate with an Ayn Rand fan and philosophy PhD. And then once I know what kind of calls or what kind of chats I got during the live stream, I will go back and edit it after the live stream to say something in the title that's more specific to the topics that came up. So it's kind of like a call-in show. It's like a radio show, and I don't know what listeners are going to be interested in talking about. But once I find out, I will retitle it later, so it's more informative to other people who are not watching the stream live. Now, sometimes I might have a topic in advance. Like last time, I found a video about uh, it was a video of Cory Booker giving a speech, I guess, on the Senate floor, saying some things about healthcare. And I started the stream knowing that I wanted to make some comments about that. So I put that in the title before I started the stream. But that's been unusual so far. Typically, I don't have something prepared like that. If I do, then I'll probably mention it in the title, but otherwise, it's just going to be the generic title. And then the topics are whatever you people want to engage with. And then those will be reflected in the title later. At least if they're, if they go on for a while. If it's some topic that I only spend 1 minute on, um, it might not show up in the title, but if it's going on for a long 10, 20, 30 minutes, then that's probably going to end up in the title. All right. So back to the chat. All right. Glad to see we got more coming in and we got some more people showing up. Um, Also, the description I add later, sometimes I'll put in timestamps to certain topics that were covered in a live stream. If I have time to do that, I don't always have time, but I might do that later to make the live streams more easy to navigate. And as I said earlier in the stream, if you all want to do that as well, you can. Like if you want to add a comment below the video with your own little table of contents, um, that's fine. Okay, so let me go back to some of these chats. So FriendHarper at 2:22 Pacific time says, I don't know what the theme. Oh, that's the one I just read. I don't know what the theme of the episode is about. Like right now, the timestamps are the actual time of day, Pacific time. But later, if you're watching this, I think the timestamps might be like how far along in the video it is. Um, so I think I started the stream around 1:30 p.m. Pacific. So the timestamp, if you watch the live chat replay, it'll say like 52 minutes in, right? Instead of 2:22, right? Because it's how far into the stream, not the time of day. But right now, I guess the time of day is more relevant. It's an easier way to gauge, or maybe you can toggle it. Maybe there are different formats for the timestamps. But anyways, mine shows the time of day right now. So I'm looking at FriendHarper's from 2:22. That's the one about the theme, which I just addressed. Okay, now going on to the next one from Cookser. Oh, I read that one out of order too. That was the one about his pronunciation of his screen name. And then we've got Friend Harper, who says, my name is from my love of the concept of friendship. And the name Harper is from two DC comic book characters, Harper Row and Roy Harper. Okay. So you love friendship and you like comics, I guess. Um, I don't know much about comics. So I haven't heard of these characters. Two DC comic book characters, Harper Row and Roy Harper. Okay. Well, that's interesting to know. I didn't know if it was your name or something else, and now I know a little more about that. I had a chat with friend Harper in a previous live stream. Actually, your name ended up in the title of a previous live stream because you came on here for a call. Um, so that was a pretty significant um, segment of the live stream. So maybe I guess you're more likely to end up somewhere in my title if you actually do a call here. But yeah, if you can listen to my call with friend Harper, if you check out my past live streams, just click on the live tab on my YouTube channel. You can find all my past live streams. And I've seen friend Harper's name from the You're on Brooks show, which I listen to a lot because I know he does super chats there. And hopefully I can one day do super chats here. I got to get up to 1,000 subscribers though before I can do that. Um, all right, so now I'm down to Darwin, who says, and they proceeded to occupy for 18 years. Are you referring to Lebanon there? I know that figure 18 years came up again from CPG. Oh, yeah, he says CPG said Israel occupied Lebanon illegally for 18 years. Um, I don't know about that. At least maybe if it's illegal. Oh, friend Harper just joined the waiting room. Okay, friend Harper, I'll let you in shortly. Let me just take a quick look at these the remaining chats here. Um, so if Israel is going into, if it invades, if it occupies Lebanon because um, it's hosting the PLO, well, I think maybe that's legitimate, right? Because if the PLO wants to destroy Israel and is actively making efforts to do that, then why shouldn't Israel go and invade and occupy the place? If it's illegal, illegal to whom? Illegal to the PLO or whoever's hosting the PLO? Are those laws legitimate? Like just because something is illegal, like, some authoritarian dictatorship makes it illegal for other people to come in and occupy it. Well, are those laws that should be respected? I doubt it, because it's a evil, rights violating regime. So maybe it's a good thing that Israel has occupied this place because they're hosting terrorists. Um, okay, I just got to. Cookster says Arafat invented the suicide vest. Um, Darwin says no, they were in the midst of a civil war. You can't violate Lebanese sovereignty, siege the capital, and stay for nearly 20 years. Um, okay. So I would probably have to know more about the details to engage with you on those points. Because as I said, I've read a few articles about this, but I'm certainly not an expert. So um, I can only debate this to a certain level, um, and I can't get into some of these nitty gritty details. Um, Maybe you're right about some of these. Maybe I just don't know. I'm not in a position to assess. So I've said what I can say based on my knowledge, but there are going to be certain roads that I don't have the knowledge to go down and engage with. Um, Friend Harper says, "Oh, right on." Um, Not sure what that's referring to. Maybe something about calling in. Um, Darwin says the only reason Hezbollah gained power is due to its operations in Lebanon. Uh, Friend Harper says, seems like the people want the Middle East discussed. I will let them have it. Oh, maybe that's what you came down to talk about. Okay, I'll find out in a minute. I got Friend Harper's in the waiting room, and I just got looks like 6 more comments to read before I get to him. And if new ones come in, I think I'll have to just delay them because I don't want to keep him in the waiting room forever. Um, and then we've got Darwin says Arafat de-radicalized in the late 80s, and Fatah accepts two-state solution. Um, okay, I don't know about that de-radicalizing. Like, there's a certain point where if you do something, I think you just need to be destroyed. Like there's no you can't make up for it. Like you don't get forgiveness. If you've been killing people, I think you deserve to die. So when you say he's being de-radicalized, like he's reformed himself or something. I don't know if that's what you're trying to say there. But even if he does reform himself, which I doubt he did, I don't think he deserves life, um, if he's been murdering people. Um, and he got the Peace Prize, right? The Nobel Peace Prize in a certain year. Wasn't that in the wake of was it the Oslo Accords in 93, I think? Which I think is preposterous, that you would give a peace award to a a terrorist. Um, then you say, Darwin, you say the PLO were moved to Tunisia. Okay. Don't know anything about that. In 1982. And Darwin continues, it's illegal under international law. Well, I don't know if you're referring to the occupation, but I addressed that to some extent before when I was saying, well, if you're occupying a place that's hosting terrorists who are attacking you, I don't think it should be illegal to go in there and occupy. That's a bogus or a illegitimate kind of law. If if international law says you can't destroy people who are attacking you, then um, I I don't. There's there's no reason to respect that kind of law, um, in my view. Um, Also, the very notion of international law, I don't know if that's legitimate. I mean, countries can have their laws, but is there really a legitimate international law like the UN? Or like, I think you have to be a country to have laws that you can enforce. I mean, there can be treaties between countries, but there's no like world government that can impose international law, I think. Um, Darwin says, under this logic, Germany could occupy Poland. Well, um, it depends on not if it's not if Poland is being peaceful. If Poland is not an aggressor, or are you saying that Poland was hosting people who were aggressing against Germany? I'm not sure. Um, I get more comments are coming in, so I'm gonna have to just go over to friend Harper here because, or else I'll never get to him. But I do appreciate the comments. Thanks for participating, and feel free to keep making them, and maybe I'll have time later to come back and address some of them. This person in the chat, Teddy, says, "Sup, Dan." Hello, Teddy. Welcome to the live stream. Uh, uh, okay. All right. I am going to admit friend Harper into the Zoom call. All right. Friend Harper is
Hello.
hello. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Sure thing. I like having you here, not just because I like having guests, but also because I need to give my voice a rest. I feel like my vocal cords are getting a little bit strained, so having somebody else to do some of the talking will be helpful. So
Heck yeah. Well, I got your back.
awesome. So what did you want to come on and talk about? Was it the
uh,
stuff we were talking about in chat or something else?
well, I don't know much about the Middle East outside of secondhand stuff. And I I read what's that Elon Giorno what Justice Demands one? And I'm pretty much in agreement with that. It's kind of like the at a certain point you got to cut off whatever was happening in the past and be like, well, now we have peaceful people with rights, and like regardless of how we got to this point, it's kind of like, yeah, it's a tough one. But yeah, I'm not a big aficionado on any of that stuff, so I won't have
Well, there.
anybody coming at me like a mob speaking ignorantly.
You did remind me of another point I could make, which is there is like a statute of limitations. Well, I mean, I don't know how this might apply to something like Israel's misdoings or its transgressions to the extent there have been, but um, there is in the law something like a statute of limitations. So if you've done something that was illegal like 50 years ago, um, you can't still be prosecuted for it now. Now, maybe you can in certain cases. I don't know exactly what all the limits of it are, but it's kind of like what you're saying. At a certain point, you just have to let the past go. And maybe that applies in this case to some extent. But we also have to look at what's going on right now. So regardless of what's happened in the past, what's happened more recently, and does that? I think it's the case right now that regardless, like even if you just ignore Israel, you just focus on nearby countries. You can just assess them on their own merits and say these are not rights respecting countries, irrespective of anything Israel has done to them. The way they treat their own people, like Sharia law, like in Iran, you have these women who have to be covered up, and I think some were killed because they weren't properly clothed. And that has nothing to do with Israel. That's the way
Yeah,
a
that's
country
their own
is.
problem.
Yeah. Um, so, whatever problems Israel might have had in the past, I think it's better. It's more rights respecting than its neighbors. So, for that reason, I support Israel in its conflicts.
Yep.
But,
But I had a one or two things on my mind. I've been chatting with
mhm.
other people who have taken philosophy courses in college because I haven't, and that's kind of what brings me to what I was contemplating it is I think how I identify these days when it comes to like because there's objectivist splinter groups now, and they're starting to like there's one called anarcho-Objectivists, and I've had long chats with those guys, and I'm just like, well, I guess it's almost to the point where you got to start like, oh, I'm not an anarcho-Objectivist, I'm a blank objectivist, and
Mm.
I can tell you more about that in a bit, but I was just so the way I refer to myself now, if it comes up, is I'm a blue collar, which means I'm not an intellectual that writes and um, that kind of stuff. Blue collar, OPAR, meaning that like if anybody has read and integrated OPAR, we can probably communicate on the same wavelength. Uh, Objectivist, philosopher, and I put philosopher there at the end because I'm very fascinated in um, doing the things that I think philosophy is about, like taking um, implicit notions and vague ideas and making them explicit, like for better or for worse. Like I'll help anybody discover if they're an egoist or an altruist by giving them the right framework to thinking about those two terms. And unless unless on the converting everybody to objectivism and more like I think egoism is a prerequisite to being happy. That's kind of my angle these days. But I was wondering your thoughts on that.
Okay, sure. I'm just taking some notes here. That's why I'm looking down. I'm not ignoring you.
Yep, no worries.
Um, I guess I could take notes on my computer screen. Maybe I should get used to doing that, so my field of vision could be more like engaged. But for now, I'm just looking down at these paper notes I'm writing. So you mentioned a few things that I might have some comments on. Um, I guess one is the objectivist anarchists label. I haven't. I think I might have come across that once or twice,
I
but
think that the champion of that right now, he calls himself Liquid Zulu.
oh, okay. Yeah,
I
I've
think he's
certainly
trying
come
to write a
across
book
him.
even in.
Yeah, I've certainly seen him. I was even thinking about doing a debate with him. I eventually, I haven't totally ruled that out, but I guess
I
I was
I
kind of
could
hesitant.
give you some prep if you want.
Okay.
But
Um, yeah, maybe at some point that would be relevant. But yeah, I'm not sure I want to do that for reasons I'm not sure I want to go into. But I do know of that guy, and uh, I don't have a sense of like the extent of the community, like if he's the only one, or if there's like a ton of people who've taken on that label, and if there's some community growing up around him. But anyways, I guess you're engaged with that crowd some, maybe on Discord. I don't know. I think I might have seen him on Discord. I know he has a YouTube channel as well.
I was in a Twitter group chat thing for a sec because I was on this other guy on YouTube. He calls himself the anti-Kant. And he that was the first place I heard the term anarcho-objectivist. I'm like, what do you mean anarcho-objectivist? How are you going to be anti-Kant while butchering terms at the same time? Like, bro, that's how I got involved in all that. But
Okay, so this was on X.
yep, they're
Uh,
like open objectivist types, and their main
Hmm.
thrust though is that, so you know how in objectivist literature we call people subjectivists, in, or maybe not in the literature, but it's just common to call like Kantianness like a subjectivist philosophy.
Hmm.
Well, they kind of use objectivism in the same term, like people who take the primacy of existence and carry it on more than, so like if I say objectivism is the noun that is the philosophy of Ayn Rand, they hold it as the philosophy that follows from or the primacy of existence, and they're basically just trying to anarchy, but with objectivist epistemology to use their define their terms. Kind of, that's that. I mean, that's my main takeaway from them so far.
Hmm. So
But after talking to
they,
different brands of anarchists, there's some that are like absolutely no state, no law. Um, it's like chaos and everybody will kumbaya for some reason, which reminds me of like the commies. But they're I've also heard anarchists describe it as, so like here's the best breakdown of it I've heard. They're like, you differentiate first from chaos and government, and then government then can be split into two. And he was like, and this was from a not Liquid Zulu. This was from Ezra something, I don't know. Uh, but he was saying, yeah, so you start with chaos, which is lawlessness and just freaking might makes right. Um, and then you have government, which is some sort of structured thing based on a set of ethics. But the question then becomes, how do you fund that type of a thing? And he was saying, if you use force to fund it, you have a state. And if you voluntarily fund it, you have a, I think he used the word syndicate. And so he
Mhm.
was saying an anarchy then means, or he was saying it basically means like without a leader. Or, and then I looked up the etymology of that, and it means something along the lines of without a chief. And so they're trying to say that Ayn Rand is advocating anarchy by the standard of it's chiefless and it's voluntarily uh, funded. And I'm like, okay, I guess that is what we're doing. That's, I wouldn't use any of those words to describe that, but because like if there is no person ruling another person, which is what I think capitalism, like Ayn Rand's version of capitalism, would end up being. It's just like you can't initiate force, but we're not ruling each other. Um, then that is in line with how that person considered the word anarchy. It's just like a leaderless group.
Oh, okay. So I I think I get what you're saying. You can tell me. So anarchy, if you look at the etymology of the
Etymology.
word,
Yep.
so I guess archy is based on or that means leader. Was that the
Yeah,
idea?
leader or chief.
Or
I
chief?
forget.
Okay. And then an is like the absence of that. So no leader, no chief. And
Yep.
since objectivism says there shouldn't be a some leader or chief, then therefore objectivism is a form of anarchy. Is that the idea?
Yeah, or Ayn Rand's version of capitalism is.
I see. Yeah, I don't know. I probably looked up the the etymology in the past, but um, I guess I could do that right now. Like, what exactly
I
does?
just did a quick Google. I'm not
Yeah.
a. I don't. I don't know if that's. They have the like Google AI producing these kinds
Yeah.
of answers these days.
Oh, you just did that. What did you find? What did you find there?
I just typed in anarchy etymology, and then I took a screen cap of what I found. But that's basically what I was just telling you of the um, absence of a leader kind of thing.
Uh-huh. I'm
But
gonna just do a general search on anarchy definition.
I
I don't
use
know
the
if,
word etymology specifically, but to find that chiefless thing. I've been interested
yeah.
in etymology lately because like freedom. I didn't know, like, so free meaning like an absence of something. It's like if you go to the store and you buy one and get one free, that second one is absent of a cost. And then
Hmm.
the dom at the end of it means dominion. So it's an absence of a dominion, which kind of reminds me of that same like there's no leader or no kingdom that you have to deal with.
I
And
think
then
I
the
just
words change meaning over time with our usage and stuff like that. So I've been
yeah.
fascinated by the etymology lately.
One that I remember is the word sincere, which
Hmm.
I heard about this from Leonard Peikoff in his, I think it was his Principles of Grammar course. So originally, what that meant was without wax. So it was a Latin word, and I guess during Roman times, um, you could create a statue by sticking parts of it together with wax or something, or you could just carve I might be totally making this up, but just go with the thought experiment for a minute. Or you could just create a statue from one block of marble or something without sticking parts together with wax. And that would be a sincere statue, a statue which is
Oh,
without wax. Sin is like, that's actually still in Spanish, I think. That means without.
hmm,
Um, so I
interesting.
guess it's more true to the original if it doesn't have wax, if it's just one piece. But anyways, when we use the word sincere today, I mean, this has nothing to do with wax. So you can't necessarily just look at the etymology of a
Yeah.
word to understand its meaning. Like even if etymologically the word anarchy means without a leader, it's a separate question as to whether that's the right way to understand the word today. Just like with sincere, even if originally it meant without wax, that meaning has kind of faded away over time, and now it has nothing to do with wax. It's taken on a more generic sort of meaning. Um, and
Yep.
I might
I
have
feel
gotten
that.
this story wrong somewhat, but that at least gives you the gist of it. But anyways, given the meaning that anarchy has today, like or in recent history, like setting aside whatever its etymological meaning might be, I think it refers to things like maybe like Somalia, where you just have warlords and gangs fighting it out.
Yep.
Um,
Just chaos is what I just described earlier.
so I mean, if you, I mean, it's if you just state clearly what you mean by the word, I guess you could well, yeah, if you're clear about the meaning of a word and whether you're taking etymology as your sole or primary guide to its meaning, then you could or cannot make the case that objectivism is compatible with it. But I think
Yep.
it's probably usually understood by people not in a purely etymological way. But also, what exactly is leader? Like, even if you do take its etymological meaning, like we have a president, so I mean, he's the leader of our country. So Ayn Rand wasn't against there being a president, so she wasn't against anarchy in that sense. But um, maybe that does that. So
I mean, that's where I'm at on it is that like how are you gonna like there's the use of the term these days is kind of more or like I guess one of the things I was telling him is objectivism has the same kind of problem of like the word selfish is the use value of it in the modern culture is oh it's about lying, stealing, cheating, getting ahead in life, and then objectivists have to take the time to be like no it just means you're primarily interested in your own stuff and so they were like you guys are all idiots because you don't understand where we're coming from. I'm like no it's just the culture isn't on the same page about basically any important term. Like ask three people what love is. See what you get. It's,
yeah, or freedom. Like so many people will say they're for freedom, but what
mm-hmm.
exactly does that mean? Um, uh, I think Greg Salmieri gave a talk at some years ago at a conference, and he was saying like even the communists or Stalin might say they're for freedom, um, but they
Yep.
have a very different idea of what it means. Um, as for selfishness, Yeah, I actually I was I did a lot more thinking and work on that term when I first started my channel. I had something called the Selfishness Project, and I would have discussions with people about that who weren't at all familiar with objectivism. And there's also an issue of the dictionary definition of the term. Like, what do you find if you look in a dictionary? Ayn Rand makes a claim about that in her book, The Virtue of Selfishness, in the
Yep.
introduction to it. And
These days, you have to ask which dictionary, or if anybody's using a dictionary and they're just using that Google AI generated answer thing.
well, even if you look in the dictionaries that we have evidence that she used, there are like some
Hmm.
Random House dictionaries from the 50s or 60s. I've looked in them, and they don't have the sort of definition that she says is a
Hmm.
dictionary definition. So I think there might be a mistake there. But people have debated that issue. I've debated it extensively in other forums, and I won't get into all the details of it now. But anyways, let's see. Getting back to the objectivist anarchists. So I guess if they think there should be like competing states or competing governments as opposed to one institution with a monopoly on the use of physical force, then I think that would be incompatible with objectivism. Um, so
That chat group I was in,
yeah,
there's definitely not unanimous consent in there either, because it was
uh-huh.
like, can you have competing police forces in one geographical location, and what will come of that? And are they operating by the same laws? And one guy was like, I think it's reasonable to be like, this is the land I own, and I have a police force, and they're going to uphold these rules. And if you're in this area, these police are applicable, like a jurisdiction. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then I was like, you got to figure out if you're going to have a federation or just a bunch of tiny little countries. This if and if you're a federation, what's the unifying thing that makes you want to associate with each other? Is it self-defense over your big geographical location, or is it something like you can't initiate force no matter which of these little states you're in, or else kind of thing? So yeah, there wasn't unanimous decision on most of that kind of stuff. But Zulu is well considered, well read. Um, he he says some pretty decent stuff if you like take the time to figure out where he's coming from. It it follows.
Yeah, I've
But
seen some of his debates, and but it's been a while. I think the last one I've seen maybe was like a more than a year ago, but it seemed like he was starting to read more of objectivist literature. Maybe he was just starting to read Opar.
yeah, one hopefully one
Um,
day he reads Opar.
yeah, I don't know exactly where he was at that point. But I haven't done many debates with anarchists. I think there was one person who would call himself an anarchist, and second username. Is that no, last username? I think that was his screen name. And it's on my channel if anyone wants to check it out. I don't even know if we talked about anarchy though. It might have been just discussion about ethics. Um, but maybe I should debate more people in that sphere. Um, I'm certainly open to considering it. Um, but it's just not an issue I've thought about much, anarchy, like, and how to defend it
Yeah,
best.
and there's probably not a lot of use value in it either. Like to me, the only point in trying to figure out anarchy stuff is maybe save anarchists from that ideology and bring them onto capitalism. But um, a lot of people who have made being anarchy their personality won't budge, in my experience.
Well, yeah, I mean, even if they won't budge, like
Onlookers for the from the debate. Yeah.
someone like Sam Cedar, I don't think is going to budge from being a leftist, but I still found it worthwhile to go on his show because there could be people in his audience that are less committed to a certain ideology and they're open to considering other ideas. And I think it's often the case that the person that you're having a discussion or debate with online isn't necessarily someone you're trying to change the mind of. It's rather you're trying to reach the audience of that
Yep.
person.
That's how I
And
limit how engaged I get on Twitter is like, how many views is this thread getting anyway? Oh, 3 people have been following this conversation. I'm done here. This
well,
guy
I mean,
is not
that's
moving.
yeah. There's so that's one reason to engage is to reach an audience, but I think it can also be useful to sharpen your own thinking.
Oh yeah.
And maybe you're wrong about something. Maybe you have something to learn from someone who has a different point of view. I think that's possible. Um, and even if you think you're basically right, I think like every discussion I have with someone, I always feel like I learned something from it, even if it's just like, oh, maybe I should emphasize this point in a slightly different way. Maybe give this sort of example instead of that kind of example. I could see that it landed better this time and it's more effective. You always find out little ways to improve your own communication or understanding of some issue. So,
Yep. I think it was in one of the Art of Thinking videos by Peikoff. He talks about like arguments, and he's like, really, if you don't have a use value for being in the argument, it's not worth it. It's like if you don't have an audience, if you're not learning anything, and if you're not sharpening your mind, your formulations and stuff, that it's probably not worth being in. Versus a debate has an audience, and a discussion is like you're trying to understand another person who's civil. But I have this one guy that I'm dealing with right now, free will and determinism, and he keeps calling me a debate lord. I'm like, I have not debated you. Where's the moderator?
uh,
Where's the opening? Uh, where's the audience? He's
well,
like,
the debates can be
such a
more and
debate
less
lord thing to
formal.
say.
Um, I think not every debate has to have a moderator or like an opening statements with like, a rebuttal period. They can be much more informal. Um, but also like they can be more and less civil, of course. I try to keep mine civil. I just because I enjoy it more that way. Like it's got to be selfish, self-interested, as you were saying.
Yep.
Like if there's not something in it for you, why are you doing it? Why are you spending your time on it? If it's just dragging you down, if it's making you bitter and angry, it's making you have a bad day, um, then maybe it's time to, rethink whether this is the right approach. I used to be much more combative when I first got into objectivism, but it
That
would put
seems
me in
to
a
be the
bad
way.
mood. Yeah, it's very common. People who are new, they become very passionate and they get in these very heated debates, which I did very early on. But after a while, I was like, I don't want to be in this nasty kind of mood so much. So I'm going to take a much more um, calm, benevolent approach, and I've got to be enjoying the experience. And if it's not, if the person is trying to make it nasty, intentionally or not, if they're throwing out ad hominems or just being evasive and insulting, then I'm just gonna end the conversation, um, and maybe block the person if it's online, which I've done many times. But as a result, I enjoy the conversations that I do have. Um, so I
Heck
think
yeah.
it's more I guess more sustainable too. Like I have more motivation to continue doing it if I'm enjoying the experience of doing it. So I see we still got some people listening. That's nice to see. I don't know if more comments have been coming into the chats. It looks like CPG is coming back with some comments. Maybe he's going back and forth with Cookser, who I see has also had some comments. Um, I'm not going to take the time right now to read all those. I guess I give priority to the person who was called in.
Hey,
Um, so
we earned
let's
that.
see. Any other things you? Well, here's something you brought up that maybe I should pause on a little bit, get to know
Yeah.
understand better. So you said you called yourself a blue collar objectivist philosopher. Is that right? Is that how you said you
Yeah.
describe
And I
yourself?
put the word opar in there because I know a lot of objectivists who like by my estimation, they seem to know their stuff. However, they haven't read Opar, and I think you can do that by like Atlas, like the nonfiction and the fiction by Ayn Rand exclusively, probably. But
I
I
think that's
started with
a.
Opar, so
Oh yeah,
it's just kind
okay.
of like where I'm at.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know that acronym, that's Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand, which was a statement of Ayn Rand's philosophy in a book by Leonard Peikoff. So it was 1991. So this is several years or almost a
That
decade
was the
after
year I
she
was born.
died. Oh, okay. Um, and she had spelled her philosophy out in her fiction, and she wrote much nonfiction, but it wasn't all collected into one, like A to Z, from existence to exists, which is the foundational axiom, all the way through all the branches of philosophy, metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, politics, and aesthetics, all combined into one statement of her philosophy, which is all integrated. And um, Leonard Peikoff did that, which I think was a uh, major, huge accomplishment, and I think it's an excellent work. So if you really want to grasp the philosophy well, I think it's important to read that work at some point, at least.
Yep. And I also listened to Don Watkins back when he had his podcast. He did a chapter by chapter breakdown, and that was informative. And um, I've probably listened to it, not even exaggerating, like 20 times since 2020 in March, just because it's like 17 hours as an audiobook, and I get my headphones at work every day for like 9 hours.
You mean you've listened to Opar that many times?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a quick read. And well, it's two days at work, and my job is pretty like keeps my mind free. Like I do a lot of sandblasting in a booth, and it's the same parts over and over again. So it's
Uh-huh.
actually kind of awesome. I get to get my learn on every
Uh-huh.
day. I think my audiobook library is like nearing 150 these days.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess there's an advantage to having to doing blue collar work. It can leave your mind free sometimes to listen to
Yep.
podcasts or YouTube videos.
And
Um,
I said I put blue collar there specifically because like I don't write and I don't intend to. I'm not going to put out a book and I don't have a Substack. I'm not doing articles. I'm just trying to talk to the people who, I come across, especially at work. Like I've been baby birding concepts to them. I'm not trying to sell them on the whole of objectivism, but I'm more like, hey, here's what I mean by value. It's anything you act to gain or keep. What are your values? Have you ever thought of that? And then I have
mhm.
to be more specific. Like it could be your health. Are you going to the gym? It could be some monetary goal. Like, are you trying to buy a house? Stuff like that. And they seem to really get it. I've even had conversations with uh, Christians that I work with of like telling them how objectivist epistemology works of like identifying the fact reality, the genus, the differentia, unit measurement, omission, all that stuff. And there's like, can't argue with that. And I'm like, started to realize that there's not any other philosophy that has a concept formation explicitly put into it. But you would know better than me because I didn't go to college for anything, especially not philosophy. But like Kant doesn't have like, oh well, here's how you come up with the definition of a word, and neither does Christianity. So they're kind of like an empty cup in that regard. I think if they did it long enough, they would find contradictions and like, well, here's what I'm identifying in reality, and it's going against some other part of my philosophy. So dead end, or it doesn't work in this one case. And but um, the first thing that kind of like stuck out to me in OPAR outside of the value and virtue definitions was the fact that like I don't know anybody on the same page about concepts like we were saying earlier, freedom and love or happiness or any of that stuff. And it probably makes communication a huge pain in the butt, relatively. It's like, how can I I could have a conversation about a guy with values, and if neither of us defined our terms, we might be talking about completely different things the entire conversation.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, just talking past each other. Definitions are important. I had
Hmm.
in my last live stream, someone called in. He had heard about me from the Majority Report, and we spent a lot of the time talking about coercion. Exactly what does that mean? Because you hear a lot of people on the left, they think like you can coerce someone with money. Um, and I was saying, no, it has to be some kind of physical, something physical. Like if someone just makes you an offer to help and it's open to you to accept it or reject it, that's not coercion. But if they put a gun to your head and they threaten you, then that's coercion. So uh, definitions are important. They're not the only thing that matters, but if people just mean different things by the terms, then you're not going to get anywhere in a conversation. So
Yep. And if there's anyone that can get it, if there's anything that can get us on the same page, it's that method of um, identifying a fact reality and doing all that work.
yeah, what facts of reality give rise to a certain term? That
Yep.
perspective has definitely an Ayn Rand flavor to it.
And just a little example, like the first example that I ran across, and um, where it started to come clear to me is um, the word gender. It's like, do we mean a set of social roles that are mostly based on like like one's anatomy and their sex and stuff, or does it mean like age plus your anatomy? Like man and boy are gender terms, but male is like your sex, or is it that man, boy, and male are sex terms, and gender is like, I don't know, your perceived, like your role in society or whatever. And because I can see the use value for both of those things, but it's really obnoxious when I'm watching people be like, that's not what gender means. And the other people are like, that is what gender means. And I'm like,
hmm
I could see how once upon a time the roles that you had were synonymous with your sex because the division of labor and subsistence farming made it necessary. But now we have this modern technological age where anybody can drive a farm tractor and anybody can seek a career and be independent and stuff like that. So the roles that we accept in society don't have to be as they were once before. And so I get where they're both coming from. And then I read that Material Girl book by Kathleen Stock because I heard about it on one of the ARI podcasts, and that one had both of those both of those types of definitions in there. I'm like, oh, I see. And she's like, yep. So it's just a matter of people are on different pages, and that causes a lot of unnecessary arguments. And just like you could at least start by saying like, this is what I mean by gender. What do you think? And have a conversation from there. But no, it's more like, this is what it means, and if you disagree with me, I hope you get hit by a bus or something.
I haven't read that book, Material Girls, but yeah, I also remember hearing about that from the Ayn Rand Institute podcast. I haven't said much on my channel about the whole transgender sort of issue, which has been a big thing in the culture the last decade, I guess. I do have
Yeah, I
one
noticed it
video.
in 16
Oh yeah.
during that election.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's about when I remember starting to hear about that. Um, but I haven't said much about it or thought much about it really myself. I do have one short video on my channel about that. Um,
But yeah, that was just another example of just being on different pages about things. And I want the epistemology part to be more widespread, even if, because I feel like if you can accept the primacy of conscience in any regard, this type of defining your terms wouldn't contradict that. And so we could at least have this as a universal way of communicating if we push it hard enough, and maybe 100 years. Sigh.
Define the terms first. Yeah, that might
Yep.
be a good practice. Um, All right, I see it's 3/7 time Pacific. I'm actually curious, you don't have to say. I'm curious what time zone you're in.
Oh, I'm in Michigan, so it's six something, six
Okay,
instead of a three.
got it. All right, I think I will stay on at least till 3:30 my time. So that would be another 12 minutes. I don't
I
want
can
to
let
lose my
you finish up
voice.
your comments though and hit you up another time. I gotta get food and whatnot anyway.
Okay, what I was just going to say, if anyone else wants to jump on, feel free to do so. You can come in the just hit that Zoom link, and I might go past 3:30 if someone decides to call in. Otherwise, I might just engage with chat for a little bit till about
Gotcha.
3:30. But thanks for coming on, FriendHarper. I appreciate
Yeah.
the chat.
And then if you're taking notes and you see me again, I have an idea for a high school class teaching philosophy that's not in the way of like you start with the cave by Plato. It's more like here's what metaphysics is and the four options, and I'm not going to tell you which one to pick, but that's just a little teaser next time you have me on.
Oh, so you have an idea for how to teach philosophy, you're saying?
Yeah, to high schoolers who aren't trying to like study texts from ancient dead people
Huh,
like I was
okay.
in high school.
Yeah, feel
But
free to bring that up next time you're on.
right on. Well, thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Sure thing. All right, take care. Bye bye. All right. Well, that was nice. Glad to have friend Harper back. I don't know if you could see his screen. I don't think he had his camera on, but like even like the multi-window, some it shows like you just a box if someone calls in, maybe with their name on it at least, if they don't have their camera turned on. But I didn't even see that on my end, so I was kind of hoping you would be able to see that. I think it has to be set to gallery view, which mine is, but it doesn't look like it's displaying that. So I might have to mess with the settings later and see if I can get that to show up. Uh, all right. So as I said, if anyone wants to call in, just click on that Zoom link and that's pinned in the chat. And otherwise, oh, I see we got up to 7 people. I think that's the highest it's been. Glad to see some more people are joining. I appreciate anyone who likes the stream. If you could like the stream, that will help it out, help it grow the channel, and show some support. Also, subscribing. Always happy to get new subscribers. So if you want to help me get up to 1,000, then I can start monetizing this. That would be great. Um, so thanks for anyone who considers subscribing, also sharing, commenting. All that engagement is good. Okay, I see there's been some discussion going on in the chat. Um, so let me, I don't, I don't know if I'm going to have time to read all of it. Um, but let me try to at least take a quick look at it um, in these last 10 minutes or so, or 9 minutes. So I said I'd stay here until 3:30 Pacific, unless someone wants to call in. Even if you do call in, I don't think I'm going to take a call as long as that one was, because I don't want to lose my voice. But I might stay on a little bit longer. But let me go back to the chat and see what's been going on. So I see a lot of comments from CPG. I see Darwin came back in towards the end. Cookser is still in there. So it looks like maybe Cookser and CPG are going back and forth over something. Uh, so let me see if I can get a little flavor of what they're talking about. I don't know if they're still on, are they still on Israel? Yeah, it looks like they're still on Israel debating that. Um, so where did I leave off? I think I was reading some of Darwin's comments around 2:39. He says, "Oh yeah, Teddy came in and he said, Sup, Dan." So I'm looking back at 2:39 where Darwin says Lebanon want hosting in quotes. They didn't want the PLO there. The Lebanese army actively fought against them. How much latitude can Israel get? One of the reasons the PLO was able to invade in the first place was the refugee crisis. It created in 1948 and 1967. And then Kookster says Israel didn't create a refugee crisis in 1948 to 1967. They were viciously attacked by their neighbors and they fought back. And then Kookster says etym online. Oh, he's giving the anarchy definition, the etymology of it, rather. Lack of a leader, the state of people without a government, unquote. And CPG comes in and says, Kookster, they did indeed create a refugee crisis. Read Benny Morris. There's no crime Israel can commit that you don't apologize for, apparently. You are incorrect. Kookster says to CPG, I am fine with a supporter of terrorists thinking that I am incorrect. Um, all right. I don't know if I should read this whole thing. I'm putting it all on audio. I guess usually I will copy and paste the chat into a comment afterwards because it doesn't always show up immediately. Like it takes YouTube up to 24 hours to process the live chat and make it available for viewing later. So for that reason, I post it immediately after the chat, after the live stream usually. Um, and also it might just be nice to have it all laid out at once instead of having to wait through it or like go to different points of the video to see what people are saying. I don't know if I'm always going to copy and paste it into a comments or if I'm always going to read the chats after the last caller, but um, I'm doing it now, at least part of it. Um, so I guess if you want to guarantee that I don't read your chat, then you have to delete it or not participate. But maybe you don't mind it. I guess you're putting it out there publicly, at least in text form, and I'm just putting it in audio form. I might not always want to. I might skip over some things, but so far I'm okay with just reading what's in the chat. Okay, so I'm up to 305. CPG says that's ridiculous, straw man, half of whom are children. Being an ethno state does not shield Israel from criticism, especially when it is oppressing the descendants of people indigenous to the land, as shown through genomics and archaeology. Kookser says Israel is not an quote ethno-state unquote. Plenty of Arabs live there, and some even serve in the Knesset. CPG says, "Oh please, there are laws in Israel proper alone that don't allow them to buy land in certain areas as well. So civil marriage isn't a thing. An Israeli Arab cannot bring in their spouse from the West Bank. You have a diluted definition of fair and equal. Look up Israel, Land Authority, and Jewish National Funds, as well as the nation state law, admission committees law, citizenship and entry into Israel law, 2003, renewed regularly, law of return versus family reunification. This is not to mention West Bank and Gaza. Those areas have no ability to devote for the entity that has life and death control over them. Kookser says, who has life and death control over whom? What? Israel's CPG says Israel. Kookser says over whom? CPG says the people of the West Bank go through a different court system than settlers. Over 99% conviction rate. It is utter BS. West Bank is divided into areas A, B, and C, all of which the IDF can go into any time. It's not a sovereign state. Kookser says, so we're changing the subject then. CPG says no. I guess you can all read this for yourselves. If you're reading the comment, I immediately post after this live stream, or if you see the live chat replay, the YouTube processes within 24 hours, or you just see it right now. So I don't really need to read it to you. I guess, so maybe a reason for me to read this now is just so I know what's been going on. And if I want to comment on anything that's being said, I'll be able to do that. So I guess this is partly for that reason, just so I can see what, if there's anything I want to say. There's only like maybe 15 more chats, and these are usually short, so I should be able to get through them. All right, so Um, I was up to the one, where is it? Um, oh, Cookster says at 3:14. So we're changing the subject then. CB says no. In both Israel proper and the occupied regions, Israel is in control and applies laws unequally. Cookser says, if you want to be treated with fairness, you really should start acting in a civilized manner. CPG says, oh, please. Rights are rights regardless of whether or not people behave in a way you prescribe. Israel hasn't been civilized in the least. Look up Operation Cast Lead. Look up their bombing of Beirut in 2006. Cookser says, you forfeit your rights when you violate the rights of others. CPG, by your logic, Tel Aviv should be sieged. Darwin is back. He says at Cookser, who made you the authority and civility? Cookser, I am a man, and I think with my own minds. CPG, you are wrong, man. Cookser, great argument. Fruit God, we got a new person. The very last chat, Fruit God just came in and he says, hey, Dan. Hi, Fruit God. Welcome to the chat. You just came in right about when I was gonna end the stream. I said I was gonna sign off at 3:30 Pacific, unless anyone decided to call in to the Zoom call, and does not look like anyone has called into Zoom. So uh, I need to give my voice a rest anyway. So I think I'm gonna sign off now. And oh, Fruit God says thanks. Good to be here. Oh no. I guess that's in response to my saying I'm just about to sign off right after I got here. Yeah, sorry you came in just at the end. I've been on for around about 2 hours now, and I think I got some other stuff I need to do, and I gotta preserve my voice so I can do my next live stream, which I'm not sure when it will be. I was thinking maybe I'd do two a week, like one on Saturday, one on Wednesday. So you got the weekend, one on the weekend, and one in the middle of the week. And I might do more or less than that. Like, so that's not a guarantee, but I think I'll probably be doing that. And I'll try to put out I'll publish a watch page at least half an hour before I go live next time. So if you subscribe to my channel, you'll get a notification, and you click that bell, then you'll get the notification for the next time I go live. So that's a reason to subscribe if you like being notified of these live streams, and you get to participate, chat, and maybe your chats will be read, just like I did. So maybe that'll encourage some people to participate, or maybe discourage some people if you don't want your chat read. I guess you could also you could put a note next to your chat and say like put a little in brackets before it, like please don't read or something if you don't want me to read it. I guess I don't want to guarantee that I'm going to respect that. Like maybe I'll think I need to read it for some reason, but I'll at least consider not reading it if you put in brackets or something. Please don't read this. Um, but anyways, thank you all for joining me on this live stream. I appreciate your presence and your participation. It's always motivating. Um, and I hope I'll see you in a future live stream. Maybe do some more calls. We'll see who calls in. It's always a wild card. I never know who's going to call in if there are any call-ins, but it's always nice to get those. But it's also nice to just be able to engage with people in chat. So the main point of this is engagement. So thanks for being here. Thanks for engaging. And I will see you in a future live stream. All right. Bye, everyone.